Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's a beautiful day. I'm glad that the rain has stopped and that we've got some nice sunny weather and it's not too hot. And it's
Yes,
Memorial Day weekend, man. It's Memorial Day weekend in Minnesota, so
it's the
even better.
start. It's the start of something big.
That's
It
right.
is the unofficial beginning of lake season,
Yep.
and that is
Yeah.
exciting. Do you have any big Memorial Day weekend plans? You and the fiance?
Not right now. We're kind of just gonna kick it, hang out at home. We're gonna have some people over, maybe maybe on Sunday have some family over for a fire and grill and whatnot. But
Nice.
we just got things we got to do around the house and kind of still like in that preparing for summer mode type of thing. So, which is all good. It's good. So, maybe next weekend or the weekend after that we'll go do some things and maybe get up a little bit into lake country or something. We're trying to figure something out. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But you're going up.
I'm going to lake country. I'm going to lake country as soon as we finish this pod.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take like 5 or 6 hours because everyone's going to be leaving. It is Friday of Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
But I'm pumped, man. It's not going to be I was hoping it was for 70s. It's going to be like I was thinking, I wanted to ski. I don't know if I'm going to ski when it's going to be like low 60s.
Yeah.
And the water's still cold.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we've already got the pontoon in, got the fishing boat in, got the tarps on those. But we got to put in, I think, the speedboat and then the tarp.
Okay.
And man, those tarps, they strain the family.
Yeah.
They really do. It's a big,
I remember.
And it's like my dad and I are doing the best we can, and my mom's barking orders at us, which we resent, and it's just a whole thing.
That's part of the tradition, man.
Love her dearly. She's great. She's great in 99.9% of ways, but she will just start ordering you around when you're trying to do stuff. And it's like, hey, I've actually done this 100 times before. It'll be okay. But oh man, I got a funny friend of the pod, the Brad. You know the Brad.
Yep.
His next door neighbor at the lake put in the tarp, but didn't put their boat in. And then it stormed.
Oh no.
And the wind came. And the wind caught up in the tarp and took the lift and flipped it over onto the neighbor's lift.
Oh no.
He sent me a picture.
Oh geez.
And it was like, yeah, ridiculous.
Oh man.
Just absurd.
And you'd think some people would have learned their lesson, with that kind of thing, because I'm sure it wasn't the first time that they ever had to do this, and so, but
no, you can't do. You got to have something. You can't. If you have a tarp, you have to have something weighing it down, because the minute when the winds come up, the winds is fierce.
Well, and it's always that one time that you're thinking like, oh, they'll be fine. That's when it's not. So
I'm sure that's what they thought. They were like, we're just gonna put it up. He said that the guy said to him that he was going to do it in the morning. And then that night the windstorm came. It's like, no, man, you got to put that. As soon as you got to I put the boat in before you put the tarp on. To me,
that's what we always did. Yeah.
You put the boat in, then it's weighed down, it's anchored, then you put the tarp on.
Yep. Exactly.
Nothing's blown away then, unless there's a tornado, in which case you're screwed anyway.
Yeah.
Wow. We almost had a tornado in Minneapolis last week.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Which was wild. Yeah, we were out working on some podcast stuff, and then like the sirens went off, and
yeah, it was intense.
It was intense.
It was like a legit warning. They were like, "Yeah, it's gonna happen," and then it didn't happen.
Well, there was I saw some clouds and some video, from after the fact, and it looked pretty spooky. So but we've avoided it so far. We've had some severe weather here this spring, but nothing too crazy yet. So
no, not at all. We've been lucky so far compared to other parts of the country for sure.
Yeah.
All right, John. So talking about this episode. So we are going to do, this is kind of a newsy episode. We got a lot of college football news. So we're going to cover the news, talk about that a little bit. And then at the end, we're going to do a mascot rebrand and talk about which Big Ten teams, how we would alter their mascots to maybe make a more effective mascot. And this is, of course, we're talking mascots because Indiana is teasing. It hasn't happened yet, but they're teasing the debut of a mascot,
which is amazing.
Really exciting. It's a really exciting thing. They haven't had one, I think, since the 80s, something like that.
80s or earlier, maybe something like that. Yeah. It's been a long time. Yeah, it's
been a long. It might have been the 60s even. It's been a long time since Indiana had a mascot. So it's kind of exciting. I do wonder, do you think Curt Cignetti got there and was like, what do you mean we don't have a mascot?
Yeah. I mean,
I just wonder, because it's like, it might not be a Cignetti thing, but like Cignetti gets there and within a year, they're pulling out a mascot, which means that decision must have been made a while ago.
Yeah.
If they're debuting it soon. So I wonder if our boy Cignetti was like, this is unacceptable. When I run out in the field, there better be a student dressed up in a costume next to me. That's part of the deal. This is college football.
That's right. And which is what we're also going to talk about, the other teams now who need to step up. So
we will.
What we need. We need every team in the Big Ten should have a mascot. So, and I'm sure there are other people out there, and we would love to hear it, who disagree and give me your reasons why. But we'll get there. But before we jump into this, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, as always, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. And please, as always, follow, subscribe, especially YouTube. We would really appreciate it. Anything on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, give us 5 stars, even if you hate us. Just, you can rip us in the comments, but just give us 5 stars. That's fine. So we would appreciate that.
Please do that, because we did have a hater who gave us 1 star when we first started and followed us around to all the platforms and gave us 1 star at each one, which I was like, I'm kind of impressed by the dedication, but also get off us a little bit.
But you feel like you feel like you're doing something right, though. If you have one of those, like you feel like you must be doing something right, because
absolutely,
someone doesn't like
But we have recently had a big upswing, John. I haven't even told you this, in audio listeners. So welcome to all our new audio listeners, of which there have been a bunch. I'm not sure how we finally broke the mold. I didn't think we could ever increase our audio numbers. Our YouTube numbers are back increasing again, but our audio numbers were pretty flat for a long time. So if you're on the audio side, please go to YouTube. If you have an email, you can go to YouTube. Go to We Live for Saturday. Subscribe.
Yes.
That helps us more than anything. Yes, we appreciate you being on the audio side and listening to us, but if you could go to YouTube and just subscribe, even if you don't watch the videos, that helps us a ton.
And to any of the new listeners, if you don't know already, we'll just remind people, and maybe, even our old listeners need to remember that this is our podcast. We cover everyone in the Big Ten as evenly and equally as possible. We do not like to pander to any one fan base, helmet schools, all that kind of stuff. We really want to make sure that everyone gets equal attention. Obviously, we know that that's, you can only do so much to a certain extent, but we really believe that every team is important, and we're not here to just, like I said, pander to this, the same 4, 5, 6 schools in the Big Ten. There's 18 teams, and we think they're all very important. So we're here for all fan bases.
We are the podcast that covers all of the Big Ten teams in depth, all of them.
Yep.
And there's almost nobody else doing that.
Yep.
I can think of a couple people who do it a little bit, but I don't think anyone's doing it as well or as deep as we are.
Yeah. There's some there that are committed to at least talking about everybody, but we really, really try to emphasize.
But they're still run by helmet school fans who don't totally get it. They don't totally understand what it's like to not have anyone cover you. Yeah. And we do. We do. So we want to cover everybody, and that's what you'll like about our podcast. And if you are a fan of one of the helmet schools, we cover you guys too.
Absolutely.
We just do it. You're just going to learn more about your competition here than you will other places.
Yep, exactly. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for listening. Please come back.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. All right, John. Matt Rule got into the news this week.
He did.
So he was this was reported on by On3, and it was a fiasco that national media pundits like even Andy and Ari were like attacking him. And Ari Wasserman, you know, usually isn't coherent enough to attack anybody. But he had some choice words. He was not impressed with Matt Rule.
Yeah, I mean, dude, even I mean, Josh Pate got in on the action. Even like famous Husker lover JD Pickell like had some things he had some feelings about it. You know, I don't know how he's handling it. I'm sure he's just like broken up about it. You know, JD. So,
well, let's tell the people what he said first of all. So I'll give you this quote. So Matt, quote, "The more spots, the better, man. Make that thing 40 and let's go," close quote, Rule said with a laugh. Quote, "I think, again, you're talking about a league that we play 9 conference games where some others play 8. So I think that puts you at an automatic disadvantage. So the more spots, the better. We're playing in a really, really tough league. We're playing really, really good teams. And you know what? If you play in this league, you deserve a chance to get to the postseason and see what you can do," close quote. So national media pundits, John, jumped on this, and I see why.
Yeah.
Because by saying it's a 40-team playoff, what it sounds like Matt Rule is saying is we can't make the playoff right now. Yeah. That's when Matt Rule talks about drastically expanding a playoff, what I hear is we can't make the playoff right now. We're not going to make the playoff this year, and I want a bigger playoff so we can make it.
Yeah.
National pundits also jumped on this as a celebration of mediocrity. And, you know, an admission that Nebraska isn't anywhere near where they want to be. But I think anybody would admit Nebraska's not. I think Nebraska fans themselves would happily admit they're not anywhere near where they want to be.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah.
So, John, I think the comment that jumped out at me, the part of it is not the part everyone's talking about. But the part that I think is a good point is that the Big Ten's 9-game schedule is far tougher than the 8-game schedules played in the SEC. And especially even more, you know, there's such a distance between that and playing 8 ACC games. I mean, my goodness, you know, I think it's been my belief for a long time that all conferences should be required to play 9 conference games to make the schedules a little more even. It would also eliminate a lot of the nonsense we saw last year because we had 5 SEC teams tied for second place at the end because they only play 8 games and they don't play each other and all this kind of stuff. So that was a mess, and you don't need that every year. So adding in another week of wins and losses would balance that out better, and I think it would make the seeding for the college football playoff a lot clearer. And in the SEC, you know, you'd be able to delineate a lot better among the teams.
No, I agree. And we've talked about this, and we're both on the same page that it is just more. There should be a uniformity in that regard. I think that everyone should be playing at least 9 games, and especially the SEC, man. You know, especially a conference that claims to be the toughest and the best. You know, okay, well, if you are, then play an extra game, man. Like that shouldn't factor in then in the opinions of many of the fans. And if the Big Ten is already doing it, because it is harder. It is harder, believe it or not. And I know still the belief to many out there, and especially the national media pundits, and this is in defense of Matt Rule, especially talking about this kind of stuff. And I know James Franklin mentioned it too during the playoff. He talked a little bit about this, and that it is hard to play a 9-conference game schedule. And we'll get even more brutal into it, when we come up later here when we're talking about USC as well, because they were in the news. But it is brutal. It's tough. You know, I don't care where you are on the totem pole in the Big Ten. And in the SEC too, man, you know, anyone can come up and bite you at any point in time, you know.
You're playing against legit NFL talent every week in those conferences. Every single team, even the teams you think are bad, have 4 or 5, you know, whatever NFL guys.
Yep.
We've seen that. We saw that. We saw how think of the guys that have been taken from Purdue and Maryland in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
A lot of NFL players.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, so and they continue to recruit more, even as they're losing the ones that are on the roster, you know. So, and then the other teams that aren't Purdue and Maryland can afford to keep their players. Yeah. So they're just building depth year after year. So you are playing serious high-end NFL talent. And when you're playing, there's a difference between playing 9 games in the Big 10 or SEC and playing 9 games in the Big 12 or 9 games in a group of 5 league like the Sun Belt or something. Right? Like the players are so much bigger.
Yeah.
And faster, especially the line of scrimmage players. The line of scrimmage players are so much bigger and faster. And when they hit you, it kills. It kills. And it's like, you know, so that takes a beating over the year. And like the fact that all of the SEC teams get to play a glorified scrimmage in mid-November, that's a bye week. That's a bye week. So they get a bye week to play someone terrible that couldn't lace their shoes up and play against them.
Put in your backups, let them get some reps.
Yes. So they just get to build depth and rest their starters.
You
know, they play their starters like a quarter and then yank them. And then rest them up, and they're not all beat up then going into rivalry week.
Exactly.
So it's a huge advantage for the SEC playing those 8 conference games. And it is time, it is past time, it's been time for the SEC to do what the Big 12 and the Big 10 have already done and move to 9 conference games.
And that seems to be the plan of what's going ahead here in the future. But, you know, and we'll get even more in depth into that here later on in the pod. But either way, the point is, and I do think Matt Rule, you know, I understand where the national media and why they jumped on him, you know, just due to the right now of where Nebraska football has been and where it seems to be still right now. Not saying that's where it will be in the future, but like I get why they jumped on him for that. But at the same time, his point of that 9 conference game and playing in the Big 10 is 100% valid. So I will absolutely defend him on that, you know, and I don't think he deserved to be jumped on as badly as he was. But I also think, you know, you're also.
He brings it on himself, though, man. He brings it on himself. He does this a lot. Matt Rule wants to be an arbiter of college football. He wants to be a Nick Saban or Kirby Smart who comes out all the time, or Dabo Swinney, who comes out all the time and tells you what they think about the way things are and expects you to listen to them a little bit. I think Matt Rule sees himself as that kind of person, but I don't think the rest of college football sees him that way yet. And I think he's got to win a lot more before anyone's going to see him that way. So I kind of see, you know, Matt Rule has kind of become a little bit of a punchline. Because of these incidents where he courts the national media and people don't think he has the standing to be courting the national media, which I'm split on, because I don't think it should be only helmet school coaches who get to talk to the media about the way things should be.
Totally.
I think it should be, but I also believe that you should have to have a certain amount of success to prove that you deserve to have your opinion count, you know?
Well, I also think that there's a way he could have phrased it that wouldn't have come across the way I think it did to a lot of people. You know, you can make that comment and make your point without, you know, with like still understanding like where, you know, to the outside, you know, for most people anyways, that like where the state of your program is right now, you know, and it's moving in a good direction, but like you're not, you know, like you said, you know, I know I'm not Nick Saban. I know I'm not Kirby Smart. Like whatever, like I'm not Ryan Day, like maybe I shouldn't, you know, be voicing this opinion. I'm not saying this is how he should say it, but like you can put it in a way that would come across a little bit better. And you know, he did whatever, man. It happened. He said what he said, you know, and he brings it upon himself, but I still think what his point was valid. Now,
no, his point is valid. It's just the fact that he's 6-12 in the Big 10 in 2 years makes people not want to take him seriously.
Yep, exactly. And that's valid. Like I get where people are coming from and why they don't want to take him seriously. Like, you know, it's, you know, you and I like have our feelings about Husker football as a rival conference foe. But like we both like Matt Rule and you know, people just say stuff too sometimes. And so I think it's, you know, I think it's both, you know, both things that he shouldn't have said it in a certain way, but he's also free and he should be able to say certain things as well. So it's a little bit of both. Now, the thing that like I find, like in a little bit, with like the Husker fan base, which again, you and I both know full well what it is to poke the bear when it comes to, Husker fans.
Oh yeah.
So to me, like it was hilarious that like Ari had to then like interview Matt Rule like the next day because Husker fans just descended upon him and the On3 podcast and like, I'm unsubscribing, I'm unfollowing, blah 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 blah. The national media is so terrible to Husker fans, and I'm like, which like, look, I get it, and I appreciate that. I love the enthusiasm and the support of your program and your coach. Like that's great. I've been there to a degree as well, but like to talk about some of the people that were talking about how like the national media is so harsh on Husker football, like that to me is a little bit laughable because
that's
the national media has been trying to will Nebraska back into greatness for the last 10 years. So
there are a handful of teams that the media won't allow to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
No matter how bad they are.
Yeah.
Nebraska, for a long time, it was Miami and Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Texas, for a long time, it was Texas before Sark got there.
Yep.
USC and Nebraska.
Yep.
And everybody says, oh, they're back. Every year, they're back. Back in a big way. We got to cover them. This is the year. They're going to be so good this year. I swear we're right this time.
Yeah.
And it's like, instead of covering, and our issue is not covering those schools. We want to see coverage of those schools.
Yes.
Our issue is that even when those schools are winning, they get covered because they're winning. When they're losing, they get covered because they're losing. And the other teams just get ignored.
Yeah.
That are seen to be as smaller brands. And I just think it's ridiculous because all the brands in the Big Ten are big brands.
And that's why we're here.
Except for maybe Northwestern.
Yeah.
Because it's such a small school.
Yeah.
But otherwise, all of the brands in the Big Ten are big brands. They're all big brands. And they should all be treated and respected as big brands.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we go in depth and cover everyone, because they all have tons of fans. And, it's like the national media only wants to appeal to the casual college football fan. The one who is just, I'll go ahead.
No, and don't forget that On3 is one of these national media mouthpieces that has been like propping up Nebraska and picking them to be wildly successful for the past 10 years. And so, and that includes Ari and Andy,
every year it puts them in the top 25, just about.
Yeah.
Every year. So, no matter what, no matter whether they won 4 games last year or whatever. Yeah. And with Nebraska, I mean, they made their first bowl game in a decade last year, and they still every year it's like, oh, are they back? Oh, they must be back. They must be so good. People are doing the same thing with Florida State this year, and Auburn, and Florida, saying, oh, they have to be back. They're so back. They have to be. They're going to be top 25.
Exactly. So it's not just you Husker fans. We're not.
No, it's not.
This is not an attack on you. And we're not here defending On3 because we are not fans of.
No, On3 is terrible.
So, like, do not come at us either. We, it's just, this is the reality that, like, we just kind of wanted to point out too, is that like you guys have had the benefit of the doubt, and you still are, and I think that what we again want to see more of is that the everyone is getting a little bit more equal treatment, and that's why we're here, and we're trying to do that. But and equal treatment to Husker fans as well. Like, we want to cover your team too. So which we do,
just not at the expense of other teams.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's all we're saying.
Yep.
And that we should celebrate whatever teams are good at the moment. Should probably get the most coverage, regardless of who they are and how many clicks you think you get for reporting on them or don't get.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, John, you wanted to talk about, there's been some speculation about college football moving towards having a CEO.
Yeah, there's not a ton of information out on it right now. The current administration, and I don't have all the info right here, I just felt like it was worth speaking about, wants to implement essentially a college football commissioner, which a lot of people have been talking about for a long time. And yes, I think it could solve certain problems, and it would be good to have for, I think a lot of like rules and what regulations and things like that would be nice. But this is still would be associated, at least at this time, from what I understand, like somehow it's still tied to the NCAA, which right there is just like, okay, well, that's a freaking joke, because the NCAA is a freaking joke.
Yeah.
But the idea is still out there and it's being pushed. Now, what I think, essentially what is going to happen is that there might be, a governing position like a commissioner. But essentially it'll be implemented, I think, by, if it ever does happen, by the Big Ten and the SEC. And and it's maybe still a ways off. Now, I know that there are some issues with it, some cons to, that might outweigh the pros to this whole situation. But I understand why people are demanding it, because there's been issues on the field pertaining to certain rules and penalties and things like that. I know like targeting is a big one that people always talk about. Like, are there different levels to it? Where are we going off here? What are we not? Does it, like, should this player be, suspended for a full game? All that kind of stuff. Like,
the answer is no.
And
unless you're trying to kill somebody out there,
yeah,
the answer should be no.
Yeah.
Unless it's egregious.
Yeah.
Then no, it should be a 15-yard penalty. You should not get kicked out of the game for targeting.
Yeah.
It's a problem. And it hurts teams that have less depth.
Yeah. And I think if anything, like if you're going to, then if they have to sit out, like it shouldn't, like you said, it shouldn't be a whole game. All right. So they have to sit out for the rest of the quarter, or even a half would, I don't think it's still fair, but like that would at least like appease me to a point. But a full game and then moving on into the next game as well, like that's a little ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Well. It's absurd.
So, there are certain things that having someone like that would be at least helpful to point to and to talk to directly. But right now there's no one. And so like all this stuff is just always like, you're just sitting out there wondering who can solve this. And like people are asking these questions and there's nobody to answer these questions. So having someone to direct those towards would be great. But you have some issues, I know, with it, as far as like, I know you were talking about prior to this podcast, like about scheduling things, which is what you're a little nervous about if that were to happen.
My concern is that if you have a college football CEO, they're going to want to take control of scheduling away from the schools.
Mm.
And I think schools, they're at the top. You have teams that are trying to improve their resumes for the college football playoff with their non-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, you have teams that are just trying to schedule 3 wins so they can have a chance to get to a bowl game when they're rebuilding.
Yeah.
And if you take it away and say, okay, everybody's got to play one power conference or power conference opponent out of conference, and one group of 5 opponent and one FCS opponent, and we're going to pick those opponents for you. Okay, well, if you're a rebuilding team trying to make a bowl game, you might not want to play against another power conference opponent every year.
Mm-hmm.
You might not want to play against a good FCS team. You don't want to play like one of the Dakota schools or one of the Montana schools in FCS. Like you don't want to do it. You want to schedule games you can win when you're rebuilding.
Yep.
And that gets your fans a little excited and get your players to buy in because they're winning and all that kind of stuff. So my fear with a college football CEO is that scheduling would become would be homogenous across the sport out of conference. And I don't think that serves the interest of programs who are at either end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Because, if you're at the top, you could get, if you get a power conference opponent who's not very good, well, that's not going to help you qualify for the playoff. Yeah. Then you're playing 2 other games that also aren't helping you qualify for the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Or like help you get better seeding for the playoff.
Yeah.
So I think you have to let the schools schedule for where they believe they are at.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I think the schools should be allowed the autonomy to be able to do that. And I think it would just be it could be potentially, I should say. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know unless it were to happen. It would kind of be pushing it even further into that NFL format. Like
yes,
that NFL,
it's much NFL-ish where you don't pick your schedule at all.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that.
No. So we're not in favor of that. Obviously there's certain aspects of it that would be great, but is it worth the potential of something like that? No, I don't think so.
I would be okay with it with a college football CEO if it was me. Or you.
Yeah.
Or somebody I believe in. But I just am sure it wouldn't be.
Yeah. Could we have
I'm sure it wouldn't be someone I believe in.
I was going to say committee. We're not even happy with the college football playoff committee, so maybe not that either. I don't know. What the solution would be, but yeah. Well, that's I just want to bring it up. It's something that has been throwing around, but I know it was in the national news recently, and I think it's something worth talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Moving to the future.
All right. So there's some saga. There's a little bit of drama, John. A lot of drama, actually, in the SEC. Ross Dellinger reporting on the Tennessee athletic director stating that collective bargaining is the only real solution to dealing with the paying the players problem, which is what, if you listen to this podcast, is what we've been saying since we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That the only way this is ever going to get better is if you have collective bargaining, because then the players can be employees, they can have multi-year contracts, and they can have buyouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then if your player gets plucked by Ohio State or whatever, okay, at least, or if you're a FCS or group of 5 school and the state U comes in and steals your best players, at least they have to pay you for them. And then you have money to go get more players.
Yeah.
And pay them to replace them, and at least have something where you get credit for signing and developing players. You don't just lose them after a year or two to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that would help. And that would help teams like, man, you look at teams like Maryland and Purdue, the way they're struggling because they get rated every year. A lot of teams in the ACC, some teams in the Big 12 at the bottom getting rated every year. I think if you eliminate that, if you have collective bargaining, then they get compensated. At least they have that money, and they can go pay for more players to replace you, instead of having to go out and be like, oh, I lost my player and now I have to figure out what to do, and I have nothing. I didn't get anything. I developed that player and I got nothing from developing them.
Yep.
So I agree with that, but that's not of course, that's not what the powers that be in the SEC want to do, John.
No.
That's what do they want?
Well, according to Teresa Walker, Yahoo Sports, and Associated Press, I'm just reading part of her article here. It says a federal judge is weighing final approval of a $2.8 billion NCAA antitrust settlement that will clear the way for schools like Tennessee to share as much as $20.5 million directly to their athletes every year. Schools are also likely to be asked to fall in line with the settlement, given the patchwork of state laws in many places intended to benefit flagship schools. The settlement, involving thousands of athletes who sued the NCAA and the 5 largest conferences, does not include collective bargaining, which White made clear he believes will be needed. White being the Tennessee AD.
Right.
Michael Leroy, a labor and employment professor at Illinois, familiar with college athletics, noted White's support of collective bargaining was atypical. He recalled then Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick saying something similar in October 2023 in testimony before Congress. This would be a very healthy development for college athletics, Leroy said. It's a complicated topic. While private institutions fall under the National Labor Relations Board, public universities must follow labor laws that vary from state to state. And it's worth noting that virtually every state in the South has right-to-work laws that present challenges for unions. So Leroy said, while states may labor on labor laws, sports eliminates regional differences. Bargaining with athletes would provide labor stability, he said, and eliminate a major source of future lawsuits and more billion-dollar costs for damages. If you ask Roger Goodell, how would you think about this as commissioner of the SEC? He would say, no brainer, Leroy said. So it's, I think it's great. I think it's a good thing. And I think it's exactly what we've talked about and what we want to have. Now, what's happening, which is interesting here, is that there's also now this rumor, and it's talking about Tennessee, and this rumor of Tennessee could get kicked out of the SEC. And this is obviously pertaining, which is ridiculous, and it won't happen. But this is why and what's going on here. And there's another article here on Yahoo Sports, but also I think it's Sportsnot, is with Jason Burgos. I just found it on Yahoo Sports here. But there's a rumor that claims Alabama, Texas, and other SEC schools could kick Tennessee out of the conference over a loyalty document. So
because they don't want collective bargaining.
No,
they want to pay the players, but pretend like they're not employees still somehow.
Yes.
Because they know if there's collective bargaining, then the players will demand more money, and they don't want to pay up.
Yeah. So they want to put a salary cap on how much can be spent on college sports. Now, however, Tennessee, and this is from the article, again, by Jason Burgos, it says, however, Tennessee is looking to circumvent that and benefit its college sports teams with a new law that will protect universities in the state from antitrust lawsuits by athletes and NIL collectives unhappy with the updated player pay rules. It would essentially allow those schools to compete without the guardrails being used by the rest of the universities around the country. So in pertaining to, the SEC kicking Tennessee out, they have concerns about schools sticking to the new guidelines. Knox News reported that a loyalty document is being circulated in the ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and the SEC. And this is why we're talking about it, because this is also going around in the Big 10.
Yes.
Tennessee just happens to be the focal point right now.
Right.
It requires schools to agree to follow the guidelines from the House versus NCAA settlement, despite new laws giving them the freedom to circumvent the rules. The loyalty document also requires schools to waive their rights to sue the NCAA or conferences over issues with those rules. There is reason to believe schools like Tennessee or Vanderbilt could forego signing the document because of how much the law benefits their sports programs. Well, if they decline signing, Knox News claims a serious penalty could be levied on those universities. The document has not been finalized. The potential consequences of not signing it include expulsion from the conference or participation in playing games against other power conference schools, the outlet claimed. Tennessee claims it will follow the new guidelines of House versus NCAA statement. In the statement to Knox News, Tennessee claimed it would comply with the settlement. However, it is still no guarantee that they will sign the SEC loyalty document. The university has committed to following the House settlement if it is approved. University of Tennessee said in a statement, that commitment has not changed. We appreciate the Tennessee General's vote of thought, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's what's also going on pertaining to all of this. So it's a lot, man. And they're trying to, I was listening to, believe it or not, because we do listen to everybody, even podcasts that we don't necessarily like, but yes. I was listening to, because it was a good long segment that I knew Andy Staples was going to break down, and Andy does do stuff like this really well, I think. I don't like their takes, but when they talk about some things in the news, like Andy, I think does a good job breaking it down. So when he was talking about this, essentially what they were talking about, what they came to conclude on this whole situation, is that what they want to do, they don't like the way NIL is going right now. They want to put salary caps. They want to keep, they want to bring back the McDonald's bag full of cash under the table because it's more expensive to do it the way we're doing it now. It's cheaper for certain schools to do it the old way.
And they want to do that by saying that collectives NIL aren't legitimate.
Yes.
So the money that you and I contribute to the U of M to pay for our football team, and in your case for the hockey team also, yep. That would be not legit.
Yep.
They want to say they can't do that because they want to go back to when they had bagmen and they had a certain handful of guys and they the players will all be paying the $20 million from the revenue. But on top of that, they want to be able to give guys, $75,000 in a suitcase and say, okay, now you're going to be loyal and play for me for 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just don't think those days are ever coming back, John.
I sure hope not.
Because will the Big Ten accept that? Yeah. Because the Big Ten has profited from this new system massively on the field.
We've seen the last 2 years.
The Big Ten has won 2 consecutive national championships and has dominated.
Yeah.
in bowl season and, out of conference play, has dominated in a way that honestly I didn't even anticipate happening so fast.
Yep.
But as soon as the Big Ten could pay, it turned out that Big Ten schools have a lot of money too.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they have more money than the SEC programs.
Yep.
Ohio State has more money than you do. Oregon has more money than you do.
Mm-hmm.
They just do.
Yep.
And Michigan and Penn State, if they don't have more money than you do, they're close.
Yep.
So, USC too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all the other schools in the Big Ten are big state universities that can pay money.
Yep.
Other than Northwestern. And Northwestern has, a big private donor they can rely on that has helped them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to go back to where the South gets to dominate all totally, because all the players go there because they're cheating and everyone else is playing by the rules. And I don't think, now that the players have seen the promised land, I don't think there's any putting the NIL Pandora back in the box.
Yeah.
I don't think you can just suddenly, because one judge could say this is illegitimate. You know what? The next judge will say it's legit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just don't think you can do it. And they want that because that would bring back the hegemony of the Southern schools.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who are willing to cheat and they have bagmen versus the Northern schools, which has a lot of people who don't want to cheat, but still love college football just as much and want to donate legally.
Yep. Yeah, man, it's a tragedy, but it's funny though, like, because that it's Tennessee, like who, like, we associate with like one of the most obnoxious fan bases in all of college football, but yet
the most,
probably the most. But their AD is the one who's like outwardly like,
I know, who's helping us right now.
Which is amazing. So
he's the one, and they're going to be the ones who sue if they try to pull this off.
Oh, and they totally will. Yeah.
And they'll probably win, because I don't understand how you can convince anybody. Like, fair market value is whatever someone's willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of these schools are all paying these players 6-7 figures annually,
yep.
Well, then that's fair market, because that's what people are willing to pay.
Yep.
So you can't tell me that, like, so what they want to do is make it so the NIL from corporations is okay, but not from individual fans.
Mm-hmm.
They want to disempower the fans.
Yep.
We finally have some power, and guess what? It's made us more competitive, and the Southern fans hate it because now they have to donate money and they're winning less.
Wow.
And it's driving them crazy.
Well, and a lot of those,
and ESPN is like, oh my God, we put all of our money into the SEC, and now the SEC isn't dominating the way it was before.
Well, and think about the fan bases, like, and this isn't something that necessarily, like, this doesn't make me happy saying this, but like the Southern states and the fans of those Southern schools are not as wealthy. They're not well off. Like,
no, they don't have as much money
to be able to throw an extra, extra money towards their collectives. Like, they don't have the money. There's some people down there, but like, I think collectively as a fan base, though, they don't have what the North.
But yeah, the median income is much higher in the Northern states than it is in the Southern states.
Exactly. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. And so that's, it all comes back to the fact of, yes, I think they want to go back to the way it was. I mean, that's why Kirby Smart says the stuff that he's been saying, these little like indicators that it's like, he doesn't like the way it is right now. That's why Nick Saban left college football.
Nick Saban left because he couldn't cheat anymore.
Exactly.
And when he couldn't cheat anymore, he stopped winning national titles.
Yep. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Moving on.
Moving on. All right. Well, John, we've got some good news to report on. So the new college football playoff format for this year. So if you'll recall, in last year's format, the top 5 conference champions got in to the playoff, the 12-team playoff. The top 4 conference champions got buys. So in this new format, the top 5 conference champions still get in to the playoff. So you still get that representation, but the seeding will be whatever in the playoff committee ranks you is what you're going to seed in as. So the number 1 team, so even if the number 1 and 2 teams are from the same conference or whatever, they're going to still be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I think this is a good thing. We had a lot of later in the second round we had a lot of playoff games that weren't very competitive last year.
Yeah.
And it's because the seeding was screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So you had things like Boise State getting a bye. And when Boise State clearly was not one of the 4 best teams.
Yeah.
And getting run off the table. I guess
SMU.
SMU didn't get a bye though. Did they? No, because they played at Penn State.
Yeah.
So they didn't get a bye.
I think you're right.
So that doesn't. But
Either way.
But yeah. So I think this is really good, and it's good for the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have the highest ranked teams generally. They recruit the best. They develop the best. They're going to have the highest rated teams. And, it would have sucked to be like, say, okay, I'm awesome. I'm number 3 in the country, but actually I'm a 7 seed.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is what we were kind of dealing with before. So I think it's going to be good, man. If I think there was someone put something out of what the matchups would have been last season.
Oh, they were great.
Oh, they were compelling. I think they had a Boise State at Indiana first round game.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Can you imagine how cool that would have been?
Yep.
There were some other really good ones too, because and Oregon got a much better draw, and really the only team that got a worse draw was Penn State. But yeah. I think you win the Big Ten, you deserve to have that. You're ranked that number 1, go undefeated. You deserve to have that bye and all that kind of stuff. So
I still think Ohio State would have won it all either way. No matter
Ohio State would have hammered anybody.
I mean, look at what they had a hard seeding last year, and
Ohio State had to play everybody tough.
Yeah,
they played Tennessee. It wasn't a game. They played Oregon. It wasn't a game. They played Texas. It was a game, but they doubled them up.
Yep.
And then they played Notre Dame, and it wasn't. I mean, it was 31-7 before Notre Dame went on a run and made it somewhat interesting towards the end. But it was 31-7.
Yeah.
Ohio State let off the gas at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love the straight seeding, man. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good for Big Ten teams. I think you're going to see probably more Big Ten teams hosting playoff games, which is always exciting, and not the same teams.
Yeah.
It won't just be the teams ranked in the tippy top, but I think teams that are, ranked 6th, 7th, 8th will actually host playoff games.
Yeah. I mean, look,
and not be bumped down a few slots.
And maybe I didn't see this or not, but if Oregon would have gotten a bye, would they have then been able to host a Big Ten, or would that have been a neutral site game?
It would have still been neutral site.
Oh, okay.
Because they're only doing the first round on campus. I think, I don't like Tom Fornelli just for reasons, but I do think he says if it were up to him, he would put all of the playoff games on campus except for the national title game.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do too.
Same.
I think that's fair. Because you can't have the Natty be a home game because that'd just be ridiculous. But every other game could be.
I agree.
That'll never happen because the Bulls are too powerful.
Yeah.
But it would be, it would be cooler.
I'm with you. Rotate the national title game to the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl. Rotate that. That'd be awesome. I'd be down for something like that. So
yeah.
But I know you're right. They're too powerful. So, but I like the seeding. I agree. I think it's going to be good for the Big Ten overall. There's one issue I have with it, but we'll get to that I think in our next segment, and I'll talk about it.
Okay. Ooh, I don't even know what you're for. Oh yeah. Okay. No, I do. All right. Speaking of, then let's move on to the next thing. There's been a big kerfuffle online between USC and Notre Dame because USC is pulling out of the series going forward. Is it not?
Here's the thing. They are technically it's nothing's finalized. Let's just say that right now. Nothing is finalized, but what is leading toward what they're talking about right now, and I think they're still talking to try to figure out what to do. Notre Dame wanted to sign on for another 12-year contract of playing each other, and USC just wanted to do it year by year. Because what happened this last year with their schedule and them realizing the fact that they play in the Big Ten now and it's much tougher, playing 9 again, we're going back.
USC played 11 power conference games last year.
Yeah.
They played a 9-game Big Ten schedule, and they played LSU, and they played Notre Dame.
So
that's bananas.
That's ridiculous. So I get where USC is coming from on this.
Yeah.
And they're getting so much flack for like threatening to cancel this rivalry, which sucks. Of course it sucks. Like we don't.
Oh yeah, I saw the Catholics versus cowards.
Yeah, yeah. Like, and we don't want to see rivalries go away. Of course not. Like we
No.
like that. That's part of college football. But their justification behind it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And again, going back to this whole thing about the Big Ten playing 9 conference games. And then, like last year, they played an SEC team as a crossover game. Plus, and now an 11th game against Notre Dame, and like in the middle of the season after they're traveling all over the place. And
Brutal.
And USC is willing to make a compromise by making Notre Dame USC at the beginning of the season. We'll still play you, but we're going to do it right away. So we have the rest of the season to either recover or like we're not just like, damaged from, whether it's fatigue or like all attrition or whatever throughout the season. And also we can just recover in general, like as far as like the standings by winning more games, whatever, what have you. So there's that. And then there's also the anticipation of the fact that, and it's as much as you and I may not like it, the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC are planning a scheduling agreement of one crossover game for each team every year. So now you're adding, let's say that all happens. This is the theory, and this is probably the likelihood of where it's going to go. Now, not only is USC, so what USC did last year would be every year. And so they would be playing an SEC team on top of a 9 conference game within the Big Ten. And then they're still playing an 11th game against Notre Dame. So that's absurd, man. I wouldn't want to sign up for that. And so I get it. USC is not the bad guy in this situation. And and that's why Notre Dame has asked, signed this contract with Clemson to make that a 12-year deal to try to replace USC. Which is also hilarious because we all know that Clemson is not long to stay in the ACC, and then they'll be playing potentially, most likely, a 9-conference game in the SEC, and like they want to have Notre Dame on their schedule for 12 years? Heck no. So the way that this looks to me now, looking in the new conference. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you talk before I
Counterpoint.
Yes.
If they join the SEC, then South Carolina is a conference game.
Yes.
South Carolina is a conference game. They don't have to play them out of conference every year.
Yep.
So if they join the SEC, I think they could theoretically keep the Clemson series.
If Clemson, when Clemson joins the SEC,
I'm saying when Clemson joins the SEC, oh, you're right, but then it won't be an out of conference game anymore.
Yeah, it'll be a conference game.
Yeah.
Plus, and then
so that's what I'm saying. They can keep the Notre Dame game because the South Carolina game will no longer be an out of conference game. So they could. I feel like then Clemson could keep the Notre Dame game as their big out of conference game each year.
But if there's the SEC Big Ten scheduling agreement, their big out of conference game will be against a Big Ten team. So
right. So if that you're right. If the scheduling agreement happens, and God, I'm praying it doesn't.
Yeah,
you're right. Then they wouldn't. Then they'd be out of luck.
Yeah. So like then you have 2 games.
The walls are closing in around Notre Dame, is what you're saying, I believe, John.
That is what I'm saying. And I know that and again, like we're going to go back to the college football playoff format, which like right now the whole thing is like, oh, Notre Dame won out in this, like because now like if they're in the top 4, they get a first round bye. Well, okay, but if potentially this all happens with the Big Ten and the SEC both playing 9 conference games and having a 10th game against one or the other, having that crossover game as a 10th, do you really think that any of these schools are going to want to schedule an 11th game against Notre Dame and forego 2 wins possibly?
No, they absolutely will not.
So how is Notre Dame going to get in the top 4 with their strength of schedule when they're going to be possibly all they're going to be able to schedule with their out of conference games are going to be a diminished ACC without any top tier programs to play against, or the Big 12? How are they ever going to even get into the top 4 if that is what their schedule consists of? Because the Big Ten,
and they're still playing service. They're still playing 2 service academies a year and stuff like that. So like Notre Dame's strength of schedule is already really questionable.
So it's just going to get worse potentially. Yeah. I'm not saying it's happening, but this is the potential. And so again, USC wasn't disagreeing or saying we don't ever want to play again. They're just trying to. They're doing what USC has to do.
Yes,
and I do not blame them. And so USC is not the bad guy in this situation. Notre Dame is the one who refuses to compromise to anybody. and everybody. And unfortunately, everybody continues to make exceptions for them. And it's about time that the Big Ten and the SEC, just in general, refuse to schedule them, because it's just, why? Why are we enabling this?
Yeah.
It does not benefit anyone in either of those conferences.
You hear that, Purdue, USC, Michigan Wisconsin.
State. Yep.
Stop scheduling Notre Dame.
Yep.
Stop it. Stop encouraging them.
We got enough.
Yeah. Don't need them. Purdue really doesn't need that game.
No.
What is Purdue doing playing Notre Dame? They're out of their minds.
No. So that's what's going on. And there's a huge kerfuffle on Twitter. And obviously Notre Dame USC fans naturally are going at each other. But, you know, look, there's no love lost between me and USC or USC fans, but I get it. I get where they're coming from.
Oh yeah, dude. The USC, they have to do it to be competitive. They want to be more competitive than they've been. They had to cut out this big out of conference game. They had to.
Yep. And now look, all of this could be
now
fixed.
They got to focus on winning in the Big Ten, you know?
Yep. And all of this could be fixed, and all of this could be avoided if Notre Dame just joined the Big Ten, and then it would become a conference game. And then therefore USC
it could be a protected rivalry.
There you go. And they would still only play 9 Big Ten conference games. Notre Dame would just be one of them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, whatever. That's up to Notre Dame. So the ball is still in their court, in my opinion.
I wonder if they would make Michigan an automatic for Notre Dame too.
I feel like it would
Michigan, because you can have up to 3, right? Because Iowa has 3 in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. So you can have up to 3 in the current iterate system, the way they have it, permanent rivals. I wonder if they've added Notre Dame, if Notre Dame would have 3, if it would be USC,
Michigan, and like either Purdue or Michigan State. That's who it would have to be, right?
Yeah, right.
So like it would be Sparty
historically.
Yeah. And I feel like Sparty would be the best one, because
Sparty only has one protected rivalry as it is.
Then therefore, that would be the natural logical move. And plus,
sense.
I know the series between them is much closer.
Yeah.
So.
And then we wouldn't have to play them that often.
Exactly.
If they were tied, if they have 3 games that are tied up every year already.
Yep. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's that.
All right, John. Should we get into our mascot rebrand?
Yes.
Awesome.
Let's talk first about a little bit about Indiana and the Hoosier and our feel about
yeah. You want to introduce that?
Yeah. So what's going on finally in Indiana? Previously had a mascot, and it was a bison. And I don't know if they refer to it as a bison or a buffalo. Obviously there's a Colorado buffalo and there's the NDSU bison, as everybody knows. But that's what it was. And it was really cool, and it worked, for the school. And I think that that's also a mascot that's missing that kind of animal within the Big Ten. So that would also be great to fill that. And it's just time, man. Every team in the Big Ten, in my opinion, you know, you're looking at the conference with the most storied programs, the most history, the most rivalry trophies of any conference.
Yes.
And they're all ridiculous and silly with amazing stories, and we all love them and we celebrate them. So it just makes more sense that this is college football. Why would you not want to have a mascot? Like,
gotta have a mascot.
And this goes for you.
Kids love mascots.
Yes.
That's how you get little kids to fall in love with your team. You start with the mascot.
And this goes for you, Michigan and Illinois. Get on. I know Illinois used to, but let's keep working towards something else. And Michigan, come on. Let's make it happen. It's been since the early 1900s, and yes, you had a live Wolverine parade,
which was a mistake.
Yeah. But you can do something. Dress somebody up in a Wolverine costume, man. It's not, that can't be that hard. You know, let's do it.
You could probably have a live Wolverine too if you wanted.
I guess you could. Yeah.
From the zoo, there's got to be a zoo that has a Wolverine that they could loan out.
But you could do both. Why couldn't?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying Michigan could have a Wolverine mascot.
Yeah.
And they could have a live Wolverine, right?
Exactly.
Some mascots make sense for that. It wouldn't make any sense for us to have a gopher. You could barely see it.
Yeah. Well, Colorado has both.
Yes. Colorado has both. Washington has both.
Yep.
So there are schools that have both. So Georgia. So I think I'm with you. I think that Michigan should go from being a 0 mascot school to a 2 mascot school.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to go on record one more time. You know, the Bison has a long history with IU, And Indiana people, if anyone's listening to me who has any power at the university or at Indiana University, excuse me, I almost said the University of. Nope. Indiana University. Not saying that wrong. People will never forgive me for that. Just call him Harry the Hoosier. Put him in candy stripe in like a candy. We lost John for a second. He'll be back. Put him in a candy stripe sweater. You know, call him Harry the Hoosier and have him walk around with a giant oversized novelty candy cane, an actual cane that looks like a candy cane. Call him Harry the Hoosier wearing the candy stripe sweater or overalls with the cane. Come on. Who says no to that? Come on, Indiana, make it happen.
I love that, but look, I'll take anything at this point. I'm glad that you're just doing something. It's great. It just adds to the whole thing. Like,
it's got to be an H name though, right? It's got to be Harry or Henry or Holly.
I think so, right?
You know what I mean?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Like, it's got to be an H name.
Yeah,
it would only make sense.
Yeah, well, I think it's finally here, and I think it's here to stay. I think it's just time, and I think the fans are behind it, so that's even better.
Oh yeah, Indiana fans I see are getting really excited on.
Why did it come back in the first place? What was the reasoning for like taking it away after they?
I don't know. I think remember when we did our mascot episode? I want to say the costume was uncomfortable, and they just like nobody wanted to wear it.
Oh. That's too bad.
And like you couldn't see out of it. Wasn't that it? One of them was like you couldn't see out of it.
But like that's a ton of costumes back then. I know. And I think even now there's probably
even now it's not great.
I mean, Purdue Pete, come on, how do you see out of that thing?
Yeah.
How does anybody see out of that thing?
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. But
yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to Purdue Pete.
Okay, so there you go.
Illinois, so yeah, I'm with you. IU. I'm really excited to see the Bison, mascot. I'm pumped to see it.
Me too.
All right. John, I'm going to start with our rivals in Madison. And I'm going to say that Bucky Badger, here's what I'm just going to say. Bucky Badger looks like a skunk trapped in an old school popcorn box. Trust me, Google it. Bucky Badger plus skunk plus popcorn box. It's once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So here's what I'm going to say. Let's get him out of the striped sweater. Okay. And also let's adjust the facial features because right now he looks like a skunk.
Yeah.
And he also looks like a skunk who just smelled something unpleasant. So I think like Bucky's got to have a more engaging kind of face. I want something a little friendlier and less mean. I don't know.
But I don't even think he looks mean. He just looks, it's just kind of I don't know. I can't even, a little bit. Where I mean, for me, I'm picturing the helmet that I've said, I think Wisconsin should go back to. I think it was in the 40s or like late 40s or early 50s or something like that. And correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm sorry, I apologize, Wisconsin fans, if I am the dates. But where it was Bucky with like the W, and he had a sweater on that had the W on the front. And he was kind of sitting there with his like arms on his hips that I would love to see. That was a great depiction of Bucky. And so
totally.
First off, go find those helmets again. Do it every once in a while. Those are awesome. But sick. Just do a little rebrand, a little adjusting. I think you can make it work, like something. And I know you're going to hate this, but Badger fans, but like something in the vein of like how Goldie looks, like that kind of like cartoony feature, but like, because they're like in between this weird cartoon and trying to make it look
and being realistic.
Yeah,
like, they're trying too hard to make it realistic.
It's not. It's a mascot.
No, it's not.
So that's
you don't see Minnesota or Iowa screwing around trying to make their mascots look realistic.
No.
You know what I mean?
But even if you just lost the popcorn box, man, and just put a sweater with a W, that's a great fix. So
yes, I'm with you on that also. So that's my first one. You want to go back and forth, or you want me to just list mine and then you list yours?
So sure, let's go back and forth. I mean, the number one that comes to my mind, and you and I have talked about this for a number of years, like Penn State, man. Like, what are we doing? This thing looks raggedy. It looks like it's a wet cat. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. Like,
You know what he looks like?
Yeah.
He looks like a student went out for a bender on a Thursday and came home on Sunday.
Yep.
He looks ragged.
Yeah.
Ratty.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just it doesn't even look like that costume is that clean. Like, it has
No,
been so, dude, I don't think they've rebranded it during our entire lives.
they haven't. No, not even one. No. And I just think like there's something again you could do. You can update that and make it look better. The mask, like the whole thing, like it's just rough, dude. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like any kind of mountain lion. It looks like like I said, to me, it just looks like a wet cat. And
Yeah.
that's like, on its ninth
I just
life.
think of like a really sad frat party.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the night, it's just you and the lion. And you're like, where did I go wrong? That I'm sitting here drinking beer with this lion, with this guy in a lion suit who won't even take it off.
Yep.
You know, that's how I feel about it.
Yep.
All right. That's a good one. That was on my list as well. Got to go with Purdue Pete. He's terrifying. He's the stuff of nightmares. He looks like the bad guy in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Purdue, I don't think there's any fixing Pete. I think you have to ditch him, start over from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Boilermaker special.
Yep.
Maybe like a train conductor, but like who doesn't look like a terrorist. You know? Like Purdue Pete is so scary.
Yeah.
He is so scary. I don't even want to, I'm a grown man. I don't even want to look at him for too long.
Yeah.
Like whenever we're playing them on TV and they cut to him, I'm like, oh, like why even show that? There are children watching, you know? So yeah, dude, Purdue Pete is terrible. I think the only way you save it is if I think you get rid of the mask entirely and make it just a regular guy who's dressed up as Purdue Pete.
Yeah.
But like you can see his face, so you can see he's a human being and not this terrifying mask. Because I think if they try to make the mask different, it's still going to be terrifying. I don't think there's any making it work.
Because it's on like a human being's body and then this giant like plastics or whatever freaking head on top. Yeah, man. Like either go all the way in that direction or pull it back to the other. Like because like having this half and half, like they're this like crazy freakish head and then like a human body underneath it. That's just weird, man. Like I don't make it a cartoonish human body or something. I don't know. Add some padding, whatever. But it's bizarre. So I'm with you.
For sure.
Yeah. So my next one isn't necessarily getting rid of like the main mascot, but this secondary one. This is the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Okay.
What are we doing with Lil Red? Like, can we stop? Can we please stop? Like the main one you have is great, and I get it. It works. It's visually appealing. I totally understand, but like Lil Red was a desperate attempt at like I know they wanted to like connect more with like little kids or whatever, but like it's just it just looks weird, dude. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the fact that it's like this inflatable kind of like tiny little creature thing. And I just I think that you got enough with what you got there, with just the main mascot. If anything, if I were to add a second mascot for the Cornhuskers, at one point in time they had an ear of corn.
I love that.
Why not have Herbie the Husker, right? Herbie the Husker.
Herbie.
And then have an ear of corn. Like Lil Red, come on. Like let's move on. That'd be kind of cool.
I think it's funny that you said that because I have Herbie Husker as my next one.
Oh, okay.
And I said he's almost as terrifying as Purdue Pete. Like, what is up with these mascots who scare children with their big, plastic faces that are just like it's like what it's kind of like what Herbie Husker looks like. And I just it's really unsettling. So I'm with you. I would say just go to the ear of corn. Just get rid of Herbie and Little Red. Go to the ear of corn. Have a guy walk around in a corn suit. Be great. Why not?
Yep.
Make it like a cob, like a cob.
Yep.
Like a cob of corn. And you could have the whole shape with like the head at the top, cob goes back. And at the bottom there could be some leaves. right? Like you're shucking the corn, like you're mid shuck.
Yeah.
Who says no?
I love it.
Yeah. I just think Herbie Husker is, I don't know, dude. I just don't think it's good for kids. That's how I feel about it. I think he's not as terrifying as Purdue Pete.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at Herbie Husker and Lil Red, is that a settling? Is that is that not a little unsettling, the two of them even?
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I could settle for just the normal Herbie Husker, but Lil Red is the one that I just think is just unnecessary. But I love the ear.
I would say with Herbie Husker also, just get rid of the big plastic head and like have it be a normal guy's, the guy's actual face. Okay. And just have, and just have makeup to look him like.
Yeah.
No, also have the have the ear of corn.
Okay. I'm with that.
Double mascot. More mascots the better.
Okay.
Is generally how I feel about things.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have another one?
It's not that one more. It's not that I don't like this mascot. I just never see it. And I think it just needs a little updating. It's not bad, but UCLA, the Bruins.
Yeah.
Their mascot is just a little dated, which is kind of cool in a way. Like, they've kind of kept it because it's not a bad one, but it's very, I guess as the kids say today, very mid.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, it doesn't excite you. It doesn't get you into anything. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, there it is. That's cool. That's nice.
They didn't make that up, John. We were saying mid too.
Really?
I distinctly remember saying that. Not like all the time.
Yeah.
But like Gen Z thinks they invented everything.
Huh. Well, I mean, they do. I'm not going to argue that. But yeah. But
like the baby boomers that way. It's annoying.
Yeah. But I do. So like UCLA, I just think just a little, not even like a crazy redo, just like a little, I don't know, revamp, just a tad, nothing crazy, but that's the only one. Otherwise, I'm pretty okay with most of the other ones.
I mean, there's some great mascots in the Big Ten. Exactly. I'll say the only other one I would go with is Northwestern's Willie the Wildcat. I'm just bored with him.
Yeah.
He's not compelling. I think you need to make him more anthropomorphic in a fun way.
Sure.
Right now, he just looks like every other Wildcat mascot.
Fair.
Like he's too generic.
Yeah.
And like maybe make something kind of Northwestern-y about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe give him glasses. Or make him like a backpack full of books or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like really lean into you know what I mean?
The smart nerd kid, the nerd school.
Yeah, smart Willie. And like he could have like a fun little hat.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just something.
Yeah.
Do something with him. I just feel like they're like, all right, well, here's Wildcat mascot number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is he any significantly different from like Kansas State?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yep, you're right. You're right.
It's even the same colors scheme almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. Otherwise I love the mascots. I think they're all pretty solid. So
there's so many good ones, man. Yeah. I always come back to like when you like what's the ideal thing you want in a mascot. Not saying this would be my number one because we did our mascot ranking, so OG listeners know what our number ones are. But I always think of Testudo.
Yeah.
Testudo's perfect, right?
Yeah.
He's just a big fun turtle.
Yeah.
Everybody can have a good time with Testudo. The little kids can get excited about him.
Mm-hmm.
He just seems like a good guy.
He's happy, friendly,
Yeah.
kind of like.
And if you're gonna be the angry mascot, go all the way like Iowa does. Yes. I hate to praise Iowa, but like Herky, like he looks angry. He looks like he's gonna do damage.
Yep.
I prefer Goldie because I like something that appeals to the little kids and the whole family.
Yeah.
The
only thing, and this about me, I just want some apparel and some merch that puts Angry Goldie on there every once in a while. That's all I want. Not the whole thing.
I know you do.
Not an overdo. I don't want to overdo it, but I want just a little Angry Goldie.
Like a t-shirt.
Yeah, like give me a t-shirt, a sweater, whatever. Like that's what I want, But
yeah. Well, someday when we are in seats of power, we'll make that happen.
Yes. All right. Well, this is fun. This is a good podcast.
It's great. It's a nice little for your Memorial Day weekend. If you're traveling this weekend, this is a nice little 75-minute-ish on the short side for us podcast.
Yeah. Well, to everybody out there, enjoy your Memorial Day. Be safe. You know, and we'll be checking in with you here again soon. Like, again, we've talked about, we're going to be doing starting team previews pretty soon. And we've got some great guests, so look forward to that. Keep tuning in, checking in on us on Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that for updates. And we will, you know, we'll be getting them out to you soon.
Yes, if you are still listening 75 minutes into a May podcast on Memorial Day weekend, you are my hero. Thank you for rocking with us. And yeah, have an awesome Memorial Day weekend. I hope you all get to do some fun things. And we will see you next week in the next pod.